All right, I'm finally back. I had some personal stuff and then got the virus that shall not be named. Paramount is still being a bunch of twats about my Halo video, even though the show ended 3 months ago and my channel averages like 20 views a video. It seems like they're going to drag this out for the full length of the copyright claim just because I used random 6-second clips in my video. So, whatever. So before I can even get into this show, I've heard it called Spy Family and Spy X Family. I've actually been saying Spy by Family, like 4x4. So I guess for this video, I'll just use whichever one feels right. I don't know. And I'm glad I can finally talk about something positive because it's been kind of shitty lately in general. So I just kind of want to talk about why I think people are enjoying this show so much. The word that I've heard most people use to describe this show is wholesome or cute. And I think it's pretty appropriate for this show. I think a big reason for it is that it's just a positive, light-hearted show when there's so much dark and cynical shit coming out. I mean, if you look at popular stuff, even stuff that I like Squid Game or the first season of The Boys, they're all pretty negative and pretty dark. So it's nice to have just a positive, kind of feel-good, happy show. It's kind of funny that this show is called Wholesome when the whole premise is a spy fake marrying an assassin who has a fake daughter who's a telepath. But the author did a great job with that, of keeping it from getting too dark. So if you're here, I'm assuming you've already seen the show or you're pretty aware of it. So there'll be spoilers, but I don't really think it is a big deal for this show anyway. I'm not going to go past the show into the manga, even though I've read it as far as it's out. So I'll just stick with stuff that happens in the show for this video to talk about. Go ahead and like and subscribe and all that shit if you're here. The main focus of this video is going to be the characters. But before I get into the characters, I want to talk about the tone of the show. So like I mentioned, the main premise is a spy, Lloyd Forger, whose real name we don't find out. He's always referred to as Agent Twilight. He needs to put together a fake family to stop a high-up political figure, Donovan Desmond, in Ostania, who wants to start a war with Westalia. And this is obviously a play on the Cold War. And I'm really glad that this show could easily be really dark and really serious and get into political stuff, but it doesn't really do any of that. The first thing he does is adopt Anya. She's the pink-haired telepath, but he doesn't know she's a telepath. And he adopts her for his plan to get into a specific school where this guy, Donovan Desmond, has a kid because this guy is super reclusive and he needs to connect with him. It's not simply for an assassination. So he wants to get information out of him and kind of manipulate him to stave off war. It's not a hit job. Lloyd says that he's a single dad and ends up marrying the assassin Yor Breyer, who's now Yor Forger. And she wants to get married because people are being arrested if they're suspicious, and single women her age can be seen as suspicious. Of course, her age is probably mid to late 20s, so she's not old, but old enough to be suspicious for being single, I guess. So this is all covered in the first couple episodes, and the premise on its own is a really great premise. Obviously, a spy marrying an assassin, adopting a telepath. You have all these essentially superpowered people together who are all trying to hide their identities while being together. But I think what makes the show great is the characters and the dynamic of these three. The theme of the show is also pretty wholesome and pretty family oriented. And this isn't really a spoiler because I'm just guessing. But it seems pretty obvious, I think, from almost the outset that this show is heading toward a direction where it'll end with Lloyd, Yor, and Anya all finding out each other's secrets, but still choosing to become a real family. So that's kind of the message of the show, which is also a nice, positive message about the importance of family. So anyway, now that I mentioned that I want to get into the characters, so I'm going to start with Lloyd, since he's the main character. He's in charge of Operation Strix, which is the main plot line. So Lloyd is interesting because we start the show and he's dumping a girl on a date that he dated solely for a mission to get photographs that are going to be used for blackmail. They're photographs of a politician without his toupee. We follow this with him adopting Anya strictly for the mission. And this is a nice scene that we have early on, because if you've seen spy stuff like James Bond before, you might be thinking like, oh, he's a ladies' man and he'll kill anybody to do his mission and all that type of stuff. And, Anya's reading his mind when he goes to adopt her. So we can see that she's really desperate to get adopted by him because he's a spy. And she's been returned to the orphanage after adoption 4 times. And if this were a more serious show, again, this could be kind of a sad story and pretty dark. But instead, we get more of like Lloyd being an awkward dad and a spy at the same time. So him and Anya run into Yor at the tailor where she needs to get clothes. They agree to a date, and this plan for a fake marriage is convenient for both of them. Her as an assassin, Twilight or Lloyd as the spy, and Anya for entertainment is why she wants them to be together. As the show goes on, obviously Lloyd starts to care about him more and more. And even just in the first episode, we get a nice little payoff where Lloyd almost immediately gets Anya in danger. She gets kidnapped by people hunting Twilight, and he has to go save her. And he feels so bad about it that he tries to send her to the police station, even though it's going to mess up his mission. And the mission was the whole reason he got her to begin with. But Anya ends up insisting on staying with him, and he passes out on the couch, and she gets close to him because he left himself vulnerable and actually fell asleep in front of someone, which he's never done before. And this is like a nice little moment where Anya gets a father figure that she looks up to and wants to make happy, and Lloyd gets someone that he's actually okay being around, that he thinks he can trust. And he cares about him for more than just the mission. And there's a really good scene with Lloyd a little bit later on that keeps with this trend of him wanting to be more of a father figure when they're being interviewed by the school that she needs to get into, which is a super prestigious school. And the interviewer is being a dick about Yor not being her real mom, and it upsets Anya. Lloyd loses his temper, which he normally doesn't do, and punches the table like in half and says that there was a mosquito. And essentially he says, we have no interest in your school if this is how you treat children. So he gets to the point of being defensive over Anya where he's willing to throw the mission away, which is really nice character development pretty early on. And this kind of goes on and on as the show goes. And his main mission is to create a peaceful world where children won't have to see the same things that he did, because he grew up in kind of a war-torn, bombed-out country. And he does some other nice stuff too. There's this really over-the-top celebration of her getting into school where he gets all these spies together and they're shooting each other with these toy guns and stuff. I mean, there's a bunch of examples of this, but I just wanted to give a couple so you can understand the point of why I like his arc so much, even though it's a slow build, I think, throughout the series of their, relationship becoming stronger. So I want to talk about Yor next, because she's the forger mom and also a secret assassin. So she meets Lloyd at the tailor, like I mentioned before, and Anya uses her telepathy to see that Yor is an assassin. So Anya points out that her fake mom is dead so that Yor and Lloyd will get together. Yor is also getting shamed by her coworkers, who are kind of bitches, and suspected of being a spy because she's attractive but single, so they think she's kind of a weirdo. So she asked Lloyd to come to a party with her as her boyfriend because her brother will have colleagues there, and she lied to her brother about having a boyfriend. So Lloyd gets called off to another mission on this day and shows up at this party late, and then he tells her coworkers that she's actually his wife instead of his boyfriend because he got their missions mixed up during his spy mission because he got hit on the head, so he's not thinking clearly. And this works out for her, though, because this provides her cover for her assassinations, and he needs a wife for Anya to go to the fancy school. So Yor has a similar arc to Lloyd because she starts caring more and more about Anya as this goes on, and she also starts showing a bit of affection for Lloyd because she feels guilty about not being a good wife. But Lloyd always defends her and says that she is a good mother to Anya and a good wife for him. Even when he first goes to the party with her, he's clearly annoyed by the way that she's being treated and defends her from her catty coworkers. Yor, in return, tries to improve her ability to cook and tries to teach things to Anya that she's good at, which are mostly physical things. Yor's backstory is also interesting because she started being an assassin as a kid in order to take care of her brother. And this is another story that I think could easily be dark in a different show, but it works pretty well as a little bit of dark humor, I would say, where she's giving her brother textbooks, but she's covered in blood and stuff. But it's not played as like gruesome. It's very kind of jokey and endearing. There's a really good scene where these kids at a grocery store try to kidnap Anya, and Yor comes out of the grocery store. She beats their ass and proclaims that Anya is her daughter. And I really like this sort of like protective mama bear side they gave her. And it makes her character really interesting because on one hand, she's super lethal, badass assassin. But on the other, she's kind of this like meek, overprotective, sweet mom who wants to be a good wife. So I really like the dichotomy there with her. The last main character is Anya, and she might be the one who steals the show, honestly. Especially from a comedic aspect. She starts out really desperate just to not be returned to the orphanage again because she's weird and uses her telepathy and stuff and people don't know. I mean, even the whole premise of the show is that she manipulated Lloyd and Yor to get together for her own amusement because she thinks it would be cool to live with a spy and an assassin. Anya's pretty funny because she envisions herself as a hero who's going to befriend Damien Desmond and save the world, and in some ways she seems really adult because of her telepathy, but most of the time she's very childlike. Like she obsesses over eating peanuts and watching a spy TV show. And as the show goes on, she also worries about things like Yor and Lloyd getting along, and she uses her telepathy to help him catch a purse snatcher and save a drowning boy. But she's funny because the way they use her telepathy too in the show is really great, where her parents are saying things to her, but she's reading their minds about spy missions or assassinations or whatever, and she thinks to herself, Papa is a liar. Or if Yor is thinking about like dismembering somebody, she gets this super scared face. And Yor isn't very well read or smart or anything because she spent her whole childhood taking care of her brother. So she tries to teach Anya things like how to fight to defend herself and how to play dodgeball. And Anya actually ends up punching the boy that she's supposed to befriend on the first day of school. And it's pretty funny because it comes out of nowhere. And whoever did Anya's smug face, like when she's trying to be cool, it's perfect. It cracks me up every time I see it. And as the show goes on, she does have these moments where she wants to make Lloyd proud of her by studying, and she wants to get good grades, and she's falling asleep at her desk. And she does end up, kind of taking to Yor, except for her cooking. So we end up with this really nice, like wholesome family of 3 from the outside at least, who all start out with ulterior motives, but end up really caring about each other and wanting to make themselves better for each other. So it's just a really nice family and nice message and nice show. So as it goes on, Lloyd wants to be a better dad to Anya because he's kind of pushing her really hard to do well in school for the mission. He feels bad about it. And he decides that he needs to trust Yor more because he's worried that she's a spy. He's worried that he's making her feel bad about herself just because she can't cook and sort of wifely things. Yor wants to be a good mom and wife, and she's trying to improve her own weaknesses. Anya wants to be a better student, and she's trying to help her parents out. And I think something that was really smart that the author did was make the boy that Anya needs to befriend. He's the second son of the main political guy that Lloyd is trying to get to. But he lives in the shadow of his older brother, and he's neglected by their father, who doesn't even attend the school to meet him or give him any praise. So we end up with the 2 main children of the series, where Anya has a fake family that really cares about each other, and Damien has a real family, but they don't give a shit about him at all. So he's much more lonely and kind of insecure about it. And I think this does a great job of kind of emphasizing the importance of family in the show. And it kind of asks the question, what makes a family? Blood, or is it the people that you care about? And this show seems to imply, at least, that it's much more about the people that you care about than it is who you're related to by blood. So I think that was a really smart decision by the author, and it's really productive for sort of showing just having your biological family doesn't necessarily mean you have a good family or good family relationships. I wanted to mention a couple of the side characters too. I already mentioned Damien and how he's interesting But he's also interesting because he does like the young boy thing where he's mean to Anya because he obviously likes her. And he's also obsessed with earning his dad's attention and like trying to earn his dad's love. So he's just a really nice parallel to her. But another side character that I like is Twilight's helper or Lloyd's helper, Frankie. He's kind of like Q from James Bond or Simon Pegg's character in Mission Impossible. And he's funny and he's got some good comedy relief too. There's a part where he borrows a fake face from Lloyd and Lloyd rips it off of him when they're done their mission. And Frankie gets mad because he wanted to take it out and pick up women and he was calling it his handsome face. Another pretty good side character that I think will become more important to the story as it goes on is Yuri Breyer, who's Yor Breyer's brother or Yor Forger. And he's essentially got like a sister complex. Like he's in love with her because she took care of him. He's super overprotective, which plays into his character because he's also part of the Secret Service. And his whole motivation for joining the Secret Service was to protect the country that his sister raised him in and protect her lifestyle. And again, he's a good mirror to Lloyd because he also believes that he's fighting for peace by trying to root out spies within his own country, even though this show is obviously from the perspective of Lloyd, who's supposed to be the good spy or whatever you want to say. And he's amusing because he's super jealous of Lloyd, and he fits like the sort of stereotype of the spy thing, where Lloyd's surrounded by enemies on all sides and that whole deal. So I really just enjoy the behind-the-scenes little back and forth going on between the two of them. And there's a few more, but the last one that I'll mention is the headmaster of the school, Henry, who says that everything is either elegant or inelegant. And he vouches for Anya because he really takes a liking to her, even though she's not necessarily like the rich kids of the school. So he's a nice character too, and he kind of plays like the rebellious upper class guy. He's kind of goofy and mainly there for comedic relief. And as a little bonus side character preview for the next season, and this is a mild spoiler if you care, we already saw the dog in episode 11, but you'll find out next season is that the white dog is the dog that they're going to end up adopting, obviously, and the dog can see into the future. So they add another member to their fake family that has a superpower. So that's pretty much it for all the characters, and I think that's what really drives this show. I want to talk a little bit about the comedy and just kind of wrap things up. I mentioned before how they use Anya's telepathy in a great way. She sees their true thoughts, so she's reacting to those a lot, which is pretty funny. And I like how Yor is always thinking to herself that she wants to hug Anya or do something for Anya, but she's worried that she's going to hurt her. And then she references like she broke her brother's ribs hugging him one time, or she's trying to do fractions and she's thinking of dismembering a body. And Anya has some of the more cutesy funny moments in the show too, like where she struggles to step up onto the bus because she's so short since she lied about her age in the beginning, or how she says ooting instead of outing. And Lloyd often thinks to himself that he's been a spy forever, but this is the first time he's ever felt discouraged. And I think something that this show has done that's smart is have the action and violence almost exclusively kept off screen. It doesn't force us to face the brutality of what these characters do for a living. So it's able to keep the show pretty lighthearted and more child-friendly, and you can kind of just pretend that they're not out murdering people every night. And we also get some random humor in there, like Yor hitting the pressure points on a cow to knock it out. And then she's like, oh, I learned it in Pilates or yoga. Lloyd and Yor both not picking up on each other's secret lives. Its own ironic humor or whatever you want to say, where I think you could attribute them not picking up on the other one's fake persona to them being attracted to each other and caring about each other without really realizing it yet, or at least admitting it. But yeah, so there's a bunch of comedy from all these different scenarios, so it's really well done. And I think when I said that the show is mostly called wholesome by people at the beginning of this video, that pretty much did sum it up. But I still think that what really makes people like it is the character work and the humor. And it's just so nice to have a positive, happy show that really promotes a nice family message. When, you compare with everything else that's big right now, like superhero stuff, where every character has a messed up backstory and a messed up family, and they're on this quest for vengeance or whatever, or justice or something serious. I mean, I don't mind violence or sex or language or anything like that, but sometimes it's just nice to see something that's just good and doesn't need that stuff to be good. So I hope you enjoyed my thoughts on why I think people like this show so much and why I'm enjoying it. The second core comes out soon, so hopefully everybody enjoys it. And I'm glad I had a chance to be positive about something for a change, because my next video is probably going to be about the Obi-Wan full season, which will not be positive. So, if for some reason you watch this video but haven't watched the show, go watch it. But yeah, that's it. See you later. Thanks.